Ugh. Our most humblest apologies. It was Mr. Vane's niece, just wanting to know what Mr. Vane, what we were doing. Uh, she is interested. She does her own little YouTube thing herself, and she is been wanting to work with us of the sub-physical realm. Kind of hard for the sub-physical realm to work directly with the physical realm in certain respects. But maybe we'll figure it out. And maybe we won't. Oh well, forget it. Okay. Okay, let's do this. Let's get back to this. Alright. When Mr. Vane was 7 years old, he had used his phone before. But he never actually dialed a phone himself. And on one occasion, when Mr. Vane, like I said, 7 years old, living with his family on an Air Force base in Northern California. Travis Air Force Base, California, to be specific. And on one particular night, his parents were invited to a little shindig at their neighbor's house. Just a few doors, a few houses down from where Mr. Vane's family lived. So, his parents were going to this party. They were leaving Mr. Vane home alone with his younger sister and brother. And he was, of course, told where they were going to be at, which house it was, in case he knew. And to add to the security, I mean, you're living on an Air Force base, so it's pretty safe right there. But to add, in case Mr. Vane needed anything, his parents left the phone number of the house they were going to be at, in case something came up. Alright, well, like I said, Mr. Vane, to that point, had never dialed a phone on his own before. Well, Mr. Vane really, he didn't really have a emergency type of reason to call his parents, but Mr. Vane wanted to dial the phone. He had never done it before. Now he was given the opportunity. So, whatever reason, we don't even remember because it was that insignificant. Whatever reason, Mr. Vane thought of, he was going to call the house that his parents was at, just so he could dial out. His phone dials the first three numbers. Then he gets to the dash. You know, the numbers are, not including the area code, is 1, 2, 3 numbers, dash, 1, 2, 3, 4 numbers. Usually how it's written down. It's American, so. He gets to the dash, looks at the phone. There's only 10 numbers on the phone, 0 through 9. And then there's 2 more buttons, star button and the pound button. What button does Mr. Vane use for the dash? The star button? Oh, try that again. Pound button? Oh, that didn't work either. Mr. Vane was out of buttons. Oh, good thing it wasn't an emergency or anything, because then Mr. Vane would have had to run to the house that his parents were at, because he couldn't get past the dash. Of course, later on, when his parents came home, he did ask about the dash. His parents explained that there is no dash. It's just there. Placeholder, whatever. That's how complicated phones were back then. Where's the dash? What button do you use for the dash? Of course, Mr. Vane did learn how to use phone and everything. Learned about long distance calling, which he really never had a reason to, at least while he lived in Northern California, because Everybody he knew was either lived close by or were relatives that his parents were going to call for him anyway. So, he didn't call. Of course, eventually down the line somewhere, it did get to the point where, you know, Mr. Vane did have people he knew, into which he would call long distance. After peak hours, of course. After 7 p.m., which kind of sucked if you lived on the West Coast and were trying to call the East Coast, because West Coast, okay, it's 7 p.m. On the West Coast, it's 10 p.m. on the East Coast. Now, don't get us started with what we're going to get started with. When you dial a number nowadays on your cell phone, screen comes up, you know. Okay, what's this? What's going on? Screen comes up similar to like this. And you're over to da 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 da. Look, it's got its own dashes. Look, it even puts the dashes in for you. I didn't have to push the dash button. Okay, that's a standard size number for an American number, right? Was it 7 numbers? 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 numbers? Yeah, wow. You're such an idiot. Shut up. Anyway, well, of course right here, you can see the number that you're dialing. So you may, oh shit, I messed up. Go back and dial away. Mouth, and then dial away. Back in the day, you didn't have that luxury. You started dialing, and you pressed the wrong button, shit. You had to go back, hang up, start dialing all over again. And that really sucked when you're dialing long distance, because, you know, you got 10 numbers you have to do. Here, and understand it from, like, in Europe and stuff, it's even worse. So, but we're not going to use that, because we never had to dial Europe for any reason or anything like that. But, you know, dialing the 7 digits for a local call, and you messed up. Could be a pain in the ass. Especially if you had to deal with one of these. You had to deal with one of these. Alright, well, if you're lucky, most of your numbers will be in the earlier series. Dial operator. Now, if you that up, 5, 5, 5, 9, 0, 0, 1. Yeah, if you messed up, you're going to be there a while. Making phone calls was complicated stuff back then, apparently. And then in the late 80s, the early 90s, it got more complicated. More complicated. How did they make it more complicated? Well, do you know what a busy signal is? Most likely, you do not. Busy signal is something you get when you called a person, and that person, or somebody at the person where that phone was, the phone was in use. And so, you couldn't get a hold of them. You had to hang up, wait, try again later. You know, it sucked when your mom was on the phone with like her mom or, you know, relatives, because she was on forever, you know, whatever. That was always, you know, oh God. Anyway. But anyway, in the late 80s, early 90s, it came up with call waiting! Yay! That meant when you were on the phone, you would get a beeping in the phone, which meant somebody was trying to call you. Hold on, person. Switch over, press the... It was complicated because really all you had to do, the only option you had to do was hang up the phone, basically. You had to hang up the phone in order to switch over. And of course, this often resulted in you straight just disconnecting from everybody. And then you'd answer the phone, it'd be the other person that was calling you, and you'd have to call back the person that you just hung up on and tell them, oh, I'm sorry, I just hung up on you. This person called. And yeah, call waiting was great. It was great. So often, your mom would be on the phone, and she wouldn't care. She'd get off the phone. The phone was beeping like 100 times. Tell your friends not to be calling and keep calling me. Or your friends would call. I tried calling you. I called you. Wait, you ring. Yeah, my mom was on the phone to her sister. Okay, and then also with that, and then of course came with three-way calling. You'd be on the phone. You're, oh, I'm going to three-way call this other person. Okay, it's going to be three of us calling. We're going to talk. Oh, being through. Actually, conference calling and stuff like that. But that still right there was always iffy because again, you end up hanging up on someone, getting a hold of the other person, and then the connection would always be like jumpy because one person would be talking, the other person would be trying to talk, and the third person couldn't hear because the way the lines worked. Oh, I didn't hear what you just said. Oh, I was, and then basically someone would always just basically be out of the conversation. Just you wouldn't hear from them because they couldn't hear you, or anytime they did try to talk, it wouldn't go through. It didn't get used too often because it was a pain in the ass. And then they came up with another idea for, what if you missed this call? Okay, say you're not on the phone. Someone calls. You're just getting home. Oh my God, the phone's ringing. I got to get to the phone. And you're too late. Whoever was calling you gave up. But you just knew someone just called. So what do? You star 69. Star 69. Automatically call back the number that just called you. The last number to call your phone. Star 69's you. Who's this? Who's calling me? Oh, I didn't try to call you. I just star 69 this number. Somebody over there just called me. Star 69s, buddy. And this is getting more into the 90s now. And into the 90s came other communication developments. Well, prior to this certain era of the 90s, there was a thing called a pager. A pager. Pagers were limited to doctors and drug dealers. If you weren't a doctor, some kind of medical, and you had a pager, you were a drug dealer. But that changed in the 90s when pagers became a thing. Everybody had a pager. Beep, beep, beep. Who's on? There's no batteries in or anything. So it doesn't light up. But hey, who's calling me? Oh, is it on the phone? You have to go to a payphone or something if you weren't home, or if you're out and about. You have to go to a payphone, which a payphone. It's a phone, public phone that you have to put money into in order to call people. Okay, that's for people who don't know. They pretty much don't exist anymore. I mean, they exist, but everybody's got a cell phone. Who needs a payphone, right? Anyway, pager. Of course, you got as the pager culture came through, people started getting clever on how to communicate. And leave a number, and each person would have a code. Like my code number was 409, or Mr. Vane's was 409. I mean, you know, anybody called and they called and you leave a number where he's at, and then he left the code 409. I mean, the person he was paging knew that it was Mr. Vane at the number that was to be called back. And there were other kind of codes that were on, depending on the groups and everything. And then it started, the pager developed into their text paging. And those were a little more complicated and more costly. And what they involved typically were, you call a number and you talk to a receptionist or something, give them the message, so you had to be clean about these messages, and they would type the message and it would go out to the pager. And of course that pager had to be a text recipient pager. And that's how that went on. Yep. Boom, boom, boom. But then, of course, the pager was replaced by the cell phone, which could do everything a pager could do and more. There are a couple little things that came out during these times that were really, you know, neat. Sort of like answering machines and voicemail. Basically, they're the same thing, just how they were used. An answering machine was a physical machine that you had in your home that was hooked to the phone, that you put an output. Everybody had an outgoing message. Leave your number right there. Leave the number at the time of the tone. That was a very simple one. Most people, a lot of people got creative and, you know, came up with these elaborate, strange, whatever. That's just, it really sucked when you get to the pager voicemail era. You'd call, you know, a person would have their voicemail set up, just like it still happens with cell phones, your voicemail set up. But people would have, yeah, you've reached Bob. Leave your message at the tone. And then you left a message. And of course, there was different etiquettes and different stupid things people did, and whatever. But one of the things that really kind of sucked was when people made these long, elaborate song-type voicemails. Because you get on and call, have them leave a voicemail. Of course, I'm on the phone. I wish you just... Waiting for this voicemail to finish. You lose track of everything. You're just waiting for the voicemail to finish. Oh, and then you forget who you were even calling and what you were going to say. And then by the time I ran out of time, I got to call him back again on my rotary phone, which is going to take an hour to do. And I gotta listen to that freaking long ass voicemail again. Yeah. Communications have come a long way since just even the 1980s. In less than 200 years, you know, communications have seen remarkable, amazing, incredible developments. Freedom to communicate. Freedom to communicate. Freedom to get ideas. Freedom to make electronic, visual, audio, social media messages. And you know what? We'll be done with it for here. You know what's funny? One thing we want to tell you. Mr. Vane moved to Southern California eventually. Communications were developing so rapidly, and so many people were, you know, communications, numbers of people having communications and stuff developed in so such a rapid form that in a 10-year time, Mr. Vane, living in one specific house in one city, saw his area code change twice. Twice. For an area code to change even once in someone's lifetime at one location is something, you know, pretty much usually unheard of. Usually the only time your area code changes is if you move counties, states, countries, or whatever. Mr. Vane didn't move anywhere. Same spot, 10 years, two times. So basically, in that one house, he had 3 area codes. The one he started with, the one it changed to, and then the one it changed to again. Yeah, communications, huh? Let freedom ring. And don't be a minion.